If you're a Star Trek fan, it's pretty normal to be cruising YouTube or the internet and see some channel or website boasting a best Star Trek series ranking list at least once a month. And that's fine. Everyone has their own take on what they love. But you want to know what no one has done? Take all those ratings across the interwebs, combine them with ratings from fans who attended science fiction conventions and participated in online polling from around the world to find out definitively how all 11 Star Trek series rank in order across media and the fandom.
Really? Well, that is something.
That's right. We finally know exactly how fans rank Star Trek in 2023, and the results are surprising, so you don't want to miss this episode. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so now, and give us a thumbs up if you want more inside knowledge about your favorite shows. And make sure you stay tuned to the end to see how to get this awesome Star Trek-inspired graphic design from the amazing artists at mixtees.com.
You are simply the most impossible person to buy a gift for.
Trying to figure out how all Star Trek fans rank the most prolific science fiction franchise of all time is no easy task. We've been compiling data over the last 6 months, and we've included more than 100 Star Trek series ranking lists from news sites and blogs around the world and created in the past 12 months. We've also included survey information collected at 5 science fiction conventions, including the recent Star Trek Las Vegas event in August. We've also included direct online polling from thousands of Star Trek fans from ages 10 to 90. So without further ado, here is the 2023 definitive list of ranked Star Trek shows. Number 11, Star Trek the Animated Series. Star Trek the Animated Series took the bottom spot on our list with 4,607 points. But don't blame the quality of the show or its writing for being the caboose on this Star Trek ratings train. The majority of people polled said they had never watched the animated series and likely wouldn't watch it because of the old animation style. All we can say is, boy, they are missing out on several great Star Trek stories. Aside from Giant Spock and Balloon Enterprise, yes, those are things, the animated series is truly like getting a 4th and 5th season of Star Trek the original series. Ever wonder how the T in James T. Kirk became Tiberius? It's thanks to the animated series. Airing on Saturday mornings in the fall of 1973 and 1974 on NBC, the series featured 22 episodes over 2 seasons. Targeting young children who woke up early on Saturday mornings before their parents could wrestle the TV away from them, show creators were surprised to learn the bulk of viewers were older children and adults. Despite that, the show won the 1975 Emmy for Outstanding Entertainment Children's Series. The series benefited from a Writers Guild of America strike in 1973, which didn't impact animation, and episodes were written by well-known science fiction authors like David Gerrold and Dorothy Fontana, who also wrote for the original series. Nearly all of the actors from the original series returned to voice their characters, with the exception of Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov. Most people don't know that legend Leonard Nimoy refused to reprise his role as Spock if Nichelle Nichols and George Takei weren't brought back as well. Koenig even wrote an episode of the show thanks to the complaints by Nimoy. Bottom of the list or not, if you are a TOS fan, you should give the animated series a chance. The animated series sits at number 10 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
Is it gone? Affirmative. It fled the ship.
Number 10, Star Trek Prodigy. Animation gets a double dose at the bottom of the list for Star Trek fans. Star Trek Prodigy earned 6,533 points to claim the second to last spot on the definitive list. The show debuted in 2021 as a way to target younger audiences and bring them into the Star Trek fold. The first 10 episodes of a 20-episode first season aired on Paramount Plus from October 2021 to February 2022, and also aired on Nickelodeon in December 2021. Also in November of 2021, a second 20-episode season was ordered by the studio. The second 10 episodes of the first season wouldn't air for a year after the first season began, which led fans to believe there was a delay because of the animation process. The truth of the delay is that all of the new Trek shows had 10-episode seasons, so they could neatly fit 50 episodes of new Star Trek into a 52-week year. 6 months after the first season of Prodigy was completed, and just a few months before season 2 was expected to air, Paramount removed the show from the streaming service altogether. Studio executives said there were data-driven reasons, implying that Prodigy didn't represent a significant return in terms of subscribers to the streamer. Critics of the show point to casting alien children as opposed to humans as to why some kids didn't connect with the series. But critics and fans of the show were delighted with the addition of Kate Mulgrew as hologram Janeway. The show was lauded as being grounded in the Federation ideals of hope that Star Trek fans love. The second season may still be completed and would possibly air on a different streaming service or network. Star Trek Prodigy sits at number 8 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
All you had to do was ask.
Number 9, Star Trek Discovery. Coming in with 7,060 points, the flagship show for the return of Star Trek in 2017 decided to go a different route than its predecessor shows. Instead of focusing on a captain, they would focus on the first officer, who would also end up being the sister to the most famous Vulcan in Starfleet. No, not Tuvok.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that one. Preparing for its 5th and final season in early 2024, now Captain Michael Burnham will bring the show that started it all to its ultimate conclusion. Being something new and different for the Star Trek universe, Discovery was immediately polarizing. Bald Klingons, spore drives, and the show opening to a Federation mutiny that culminated in a Klingon war had longtime fans up in arms. But Discovery would slowly find its audience and following. And after giving birth to Star Trek Strange New Worlds in its second season, the crew of Discovery would go 900 years into the future, embarking on their own adventures. Creator Brian Fuller got his wish when they cast Sonequa Martin Green of Walking Dead fame, after being inspired by the first black woman in space, Mae Jemison. Star Trek Discovery sits at number 11 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
There is no choice. You have to let me die.
Number 8, Star Trek Enterprise. The 5th live-action installment of the Star Trek franchise came in with 7,228 points and had an uphill battle from the start. Not only would Enterprise explore the beginning of Starfleet and the Federation as a prequel series, but it would drop Star Trek from its name and go with a more contemporary-sounding rock intro. Top that off with a burnout creative team and a studio executive named Les Moonves stalking the show for a kill, and it's a recipe for hard times. That said, Captain Archer and his band of Alpha Quadrant trailblazers had begun to pull itself out of a nosedive during its 4th season, with excellent writing by Manny Coto. Even science fiction legend Scott Bakula couldn't keep the home fires lit under the crumbling weight of UPN, which would eventually be combined with the WB and turned into the CW, ironically. With Enterprise coming in the lowest of all the legacy live shows, fans may still be disappointed in a finale that made the show seem like a TNG holo novel instead of holding its own strong place in the universe. Enterprise would become the only Berman-era show to not get 7 seasons and a satisfying conclusion to the character story arcs, and perhaps this is why fans still hold a grudge against the show. That said, in our opinion, Enterprise has some of the best Star Trek episodes of any series and sits at number 3 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
Wish you good luck, Captain. But you've always had an ample supply.
Number 7, Star Trek Picard. The most anticipated series since The Next Generation, Star Trek Picard came in at 7,356 points. Picard would continue the story of Captain Jean-Luc Picard and capture the last vestiges of stage, film, and TV star Patrick Stewart. There was only one catch. No one else from TNG was allowed to be a regular on the show. Stewart didn't want to revisit that version of Captain Picard, and it was actually a hard no in the first place. What changed Patrick's mind was his experience on the movie Logan, where he played a broken-down version of his character, Professor X. Well, that, a dump truck full of money, and the ability to sit in the writer's room and help develop the storyline his character was continuing on. Picard aired on January 23, 2020, and ended only days before the world would have to face the harsh realities of COVID, which would derail society for nearly 2 years. Picard Season 2 returned in March 2022 to mixed reviews. Toward the end of the second season, Season 3 showrunner Terry Matalas would announce the return of the TNG crew for Season 3 as they accompanied Picard on his final adventure. Picard Season 3 would become the most popular season of Star Trek television since its return in 2017. The final goodbye for Star Trek TNG would be hailed as one of its best, and set up discussion of a new show, potentially called Star Trek Legacy, that would follow new Captain 7 of 9 and her adventures on the Enterprise G. Star Trek Picard sits at number 5 on the Popcast all-time rank list, based on the 3rd season alone.
Course laid in, sir. She's ready. Engage.
Number 6. Star Trek Lower Decks. When Star Trek returned in 2017, Secret Hideout and Trek Universe head Alex Kurtzman had a game plan. How do they reach a wide variety of audiences with Trek? They had the flagship show, and they had a kids show. How about a show targeting that popular animated Rick and Morty audience?
Listen to your sister, Morty. To live is to risk it all.
And thus was born Lower Decks, who earned 7,591 points on this list. Unlike other Star Trek shows, this would focus on the missions of low-ranking officers with menial jobs, with the captain and other senior staff appearing as supporting characters. The idea was to explore the lore of Star Trek while also poking at the franchise and having fun along the way. Lower Decks has been described as a love letter to fans, attempting not to punch down on Trek, but focus on stories where the characters happen to be funny. It was the final episode of Star Trek Enterprise that gave showrunner Mike McMahon the idea that Starfleet personnel in the future would watch Star Trek and be aware of the events of the past and comment on them. Fans of Lower Decks can thank what was widely thought of as a huge mistake in the Star Trek Enterprise finale for the success of Lower Decks. A 5th season of Lower Decks was ordered in March 2023. Star Trek Lower Decks sits at number 7 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
Cool. Well, welcome to the team. I'm sort of the unofficial leader. Feel free to come to me with any questions.
Number 5. Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The accidental Star Trek show that would become a darling of the new Star Trek era, Strange New Worlds, coming in at 10,155 points, was birthed during a conversation between showrunner Akiva Goldsman and Kurtzman when Goldsman was asked by his longtime friend to come and help him with Star Trek Discovery. Goldsman said, "So it's a prequel. Does that mean we're exploring Captain Pike and his time on the Enterprise?" After what would have likely been an awkward silence and an explanation of who Michael Burnham was, Goldsman would go on to supervise the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery. And guess who happened to show up in the 2nd season? Captain Pike. Captain Pike and what would eventually be the spin-off crew for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which just completed its 2nd season and has been greenlit for a 3rd, pending the outcome of the current writer's strike. Strange New Worlds' place on this list is evidence that a new Star Trek series can come knocking on the door of legacy Star Trek shows. And who knows, once all of us legacy fans are dead, perhaps Strange New Worlds will reign supreme on the Star Trek's Mount Rushmore. But not yet. What will Anson Mount be cooking up as Captain Pike in the show's 3rd season? We promise you'll get to see every inch of his kitchen. Strange New Worlds sits at number 9 on the Popcast all-time rank list, based on the fact that they created a new Star Trek universe and showcased dancing and singing Klingons.
But Captain, what is that amazing smell?
Oh, it's the bacon.
Number 4. Star Trek Voyager. The 4th live-action Star Trek show is also the 4th on this list. Star Trek Voyager, which earned 11,119 points for this list, was supposed to be the replacement for The Next Generation when it went off the air. What it did instead is take us on a journey to the Delta Quadrant, a place we'd never been in Star Trek before, and we would go on a 7-year adventure testing one captain's ability to maintain her Starfleet ideals in the face of certain death week to week, 70,000 light years from home. Voyager would continue the Star Trek tradition of breaking barriers by introducing a female captain as the show's centerpiece and the first Black Vulcan. The show was judged to be the least popular of the first 3 Berman-era series, but the show also had a severe handicap with its viewing audience. Unlike TNG and Deep Space Nine, which was syndicated, Voyager had to be the anchor of a whole new television network. Despite the UPN handicap, Voyager would be considered a success, running the full 7 seasons that TNG and DS9 got, including an ending that would get the crew home. Voyager was the introduction of our first full-time Borg character and an experiment in how far exactly you could take sex appeal in a Star Trek show. Voyager's 4th season is amongst the franchise's best, with memorable episodes like Year of Hell, Mortal Coil, and Living Witness. Star Trek Voyager sits at number 1 on the Popcast all-time rank list as the most rewatchable of all Star Trek series.
Nevertheless, I am willing to explore my humanity. Take off your clothes.
Number 3. Star Trek The Original Series. You don't have Star Trek without Captain Kirk and Spock to come and inspire the whole universe. Star Trek The Original Series earned 14,398 points for this list. There was a time when it dominated the number 1 spot, but as the original show gets older, newer fans are less interested in revisiting the series that started it all. Created by Gene Roddenberry and airing on September 8, 1966, thanks to the legend Lucille Ball, Star Trek would capture the imagination of generations to come. Created as a result of popular westerns of the time, Star Trek was wagon train to the stars. But they had no idea what they were getting with Roddenberry and the talented science fiction writers of the time. The creatives mastered the art of a message within a message and used futuristic alien cultures to get anti-war and equality messages past censors and out to the public. Star Trek would be canceled, but its ideology would live on through conventions and eventually paving the way for all of the shows on the list today. Star Trek the original series sits at number 4 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
Is there something I can do for you, Captain? Like what?
Number 2, Deep Space Nine. Star Trek already had the perfect specimen captain and an aging, balding captain, so why not a black captain? Deep Space Nine, with 14,467 points on this list, continued the job of its predecessors by breaking race and sex barriers. Not only did DS9 have the first black captain, but it also had the first female first officer, unless you count the Star Trek pilot. The show also continued to break boundaries by becoming the first Star Trek show to have a story arc and break from the totally episodic mold. Although DS9 was never as popular as TNG, in 1999 it became the #1 syndicated show and critics called it the best acted, written, and produced Star Trek series. Benjamin Sisko was a different kind of captain and fans liked that. He punched Q in the face, and he had no love of Jean-Luc Picard. Avery Brooks brought a little something different to Star Trek in his character. Over the course of its 7-year run, the show would gain the popular TNG character of Worf and a war with the Dominion that would change Star Trek storytelling forever. DS9 took a more cynical view of human nature and the Federation outside of the utopian vision presented in TOS and TNG. Star Trek Deep Space Nine sits at number 6 on the Popcast all-time rank list.
First sign of betrayal, I will kill him, but I promise to return the body intact.
I assume that's a joke.
We will see. That is a joke. I get it. It is not funny, but I get it.
Number 1, Star Trek The Next Generation. After the original series, Roddenberry would spend years trying to bring back another Star Trek series. He would finally do so on September 28, 1987. Star Trek The Next Generation, which tops our list at 15,623 points, is the hands-down champion of the best of the Star Trek series lists.
Make love to me.
What?
And why wouldn't it be? It was the show that launched a second wave of Star Trek excitement. It ran 7 seasons, and thanks to Gene and the stubbornness of Rick Berman after Gene's passing, Star Trek The Next Generation continued to deliver on the promise of hopefulness for humanity's future that Star Trek the original series started. In Picard, we may even have a captain with stronger ideals and deeper character than Kirk, and his crew mirrored his ideals in every way. Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes and company can thank their lucky stars that William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy had become too expensive after Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, or it might have been them in the new television series. We normally complain when studio executives are cheap, but in this instance, it worked out for us Star Trek fans. Where would we be without Q in our Star Trek universe? Star Trek The Next Generation sits at number 2 on the Popcast all-time rank list. Well, there you have it. The definitive ranking of Star Trek series based on all available online and fan data in 2023. You can see how close it was for some of the series. TNG was a clear winner, but DS9 and TOS were close. Also, there was a 500-point difference in the 6th through the 9th places. And for a look at the combined Popcast series ranking, you can see that here. As you can see, we didn't align with the status quo, and in the end, perhaps your list doesn't either. And that's what's great about Star Trek. Everyone's opinion counts. Your favorite show is whatever you want it to be, and none of us can take it away from you. But what do you think? Does this list match up with yours? Share the order of your favorite shows in the comments below, and let's discuss it. And don't forget to take a peek at our merch store. Always great Star Trek and other pop culture gear you'll love. Get 20% off your purchase by using coupon code THEPOPCAST. The link is in the description below. Until next time.
This ship will shortly become the care of another crew. They will continue the voyages we have begun, boldly going where no man has gone before.